Is fat really absolutely necessary when you do pilaf? Well, let's look at rice this way, okay? So imagine this is an army, okay? Each grain of rice is a soldier. Each soldier needs protection and it needs a weapon. The problem with rice, though, is that the more rice you add, the more starch builds up. And if you combine water with that, it begins to build starch. And starch and water becomes a mess. So let's do an experiment. Let's try this out. I grabbed the pan and I turned the heat on to about medium. And I added the rice with no fat whatsoever, just the rice on its own onto that pan. The goal here is to get it as golden brown as possible without burning. As you can see here, some grains are already a different color because they have low moisture. So keep that in mind. So I just kept tossing this until it got to a very golden brown consistency. Now, if you didn't know, rice turns pretty white before it starts to actually toast. But once it starts toasting, it can go very quick from that point on. So you got to be careful. So this is to the point that I got it. By the way, Mexican rice, this is a key here. If you toast the rice this much, you have a great rice. So, anyways, now for the one with fat, I added lard to that pan and then I added the rice. The key here is to toss it around, move it around to make sure that the fat or the oil coats every single grain of rice. So that's the idea, right? We're still gonna get it golden brown, so we could get it close to, if not identical to the one we did without fat. As you can see here, some grains are already golden brown more than others. That's because they have low moisture content. So it looks about ready. So once I got both batches nice and golden brown, I added stock. Obviously, I did this in separate occasions. It's not cooking together. And I brought the stock to a simmer, and then I lowered the heat, and then I covered the pot. Pretty much traditional pilaf, the way you do it. So now for the results. For the rice with no fat, doesn't look bad, right? It looks like standard rice. Nothing crazy here, nothing to see here. However, for the one with fat, you can already see it's quite different. It's really obvious. Okay, so for the one with no fat, you can see there's moisture that's actually leaching from the rice. That's because the rice absorbed more than it can actually take, and it's releasing some of that water with starch. And the mouthfeel is a little bit mushy, not quite mushy all the way, but a little bit. Now, the one with fat, you can see each grain wants to separate. It doesn't really want to stick to other grains. It's perfect texture visually. And then mouthfeel, it's a perfect texture, absorbed just the right amount of moisture. So, in other words, the fat or the oil, whatever you use, it's like a bouncer in a club. It allows water or moisture or stock in, but it denied access to the rest. Stay tuned for the second part of this series. Peace.